Hello. Your children are nervous. They're stressed out. They're talking about their teachers being stressed out. You say, what is the matter? They say it's benchmark week or it's TCAP week. Yes, standardized testing. Uh, I'm sure that all of you have probably, the younger ones have been through this stress while taking the test, or you know people who have. I myself have seen my children and grandchildren go through the stress. Even the newspaper had a headline, TCAP bearing down. It sounds a little ominous. It talks about the stress that the students and teachers are under while taking these tests. I'd like to tell you about some of the problems of standardized testing. There are three major publishing companies, Houghton Mifflin, Pearson, and McGraw-Hill, who purchase or they publish all the textbooks for our nation's schools. In 2013, they had a revenue of $1.38 billion for 1 year. The textbooks are fine. What is not fine is that they also create the tests, the standardized tests that our children take. The answers have to be verbatim from their book for them to be counted correct. One child answered the question right, but because it wasn't word for word, it was counted wrong. And this is not fair to the children. Richard Phelps has a book where he defends standardized testing. He says that any child could pass at 70% to pass this test. Well, Meredith Broussard did an investigative report at a poor school district in Philadelphia. These children only have 27% of the books they need for all the children. One school, Tilden Middle School, has 117 students and 42 books. Those children have to share those books. They're not allowed to take them home. It's not fair to test them when at the same standard that you have at a fluent school that has more resources than they could possibly use, while these children have nothing. I would think that the district would come up with a test that would match what's on hand for those children. That's another problem that is with these tests. Not all the questions that these children have to answer have been taught. Each district gives their teachers in that district a curriculum to teach. One of the teachers in Broussard's investigation said she was told not to teach a certain aspect of math. Well, when the test came, most of the math was on that subject, so these children had to just guess at the answer. My own grandchildren are in middle school and had a social studies field test. Their teacher apologized that the test was too hard. She said, I have not taught you some of these things. She said, I actually missed some of the questions on it, and she's been teaching for 20 some odd years. And she did not know the answer. They expect 12-year-old children to know the answer. Richard Phelps also says that the statement that standardized testing sets up children for failure is a misconception. Well, I disagree with him. The TCAP tests count for 15% of the children's report card grade in their second semester. Now, my grandchildren work real hard to keep A's on their report card. They have a bad day when they take this test, it's going to negate all the hard work they did that past semester. And think about the children who are on the cusp of maybe passing that grade. This 15% could be the break of not passing into that next grade. Do you think that's not going to hurt their self-esteem or set them up for failure? It most certainly is. Teachers are also under a great pressure. The scores that these tests provide are 50% of their evaluation. That has to do with their raises or bonuses and even keeping their jobs. Some teachers and educators in Atlanta were convicted of cheating on the tests, on the standardized testing. Should they have cheated? Absolutely not. That's not acceptable at any time. But the sentences they got, they were all convicted. Later, the judge reduced 3 of the people's sentences from 7 years in prison to 3 years in prison with 13 years probation for cheating on standardized testing. They shouldn't have cheated, but this is a little steep when this problem was foisted upon them by the government by having to have the statistics and the numbers. It's a numbers game for these people. They want to be better than their next district. I can sum up their stress by James Popham, a quote by him from his book. He says, U.S. educators have been thrown into a score boosting game that they cannot win. More accurately, the score boosting game cannot be won without doing educational damage to the children in our public schools. He is so right. Teachers cannot do their job teaching because they're so cognizant of keeping those scores up and keeping their jobs. So you've heard about these problems, and you think, what can I do? One teacher said, I'm only a teacher. What can I do about it? The teachers don't really approve of some of this either. The money that is spent to these big companies to create these tests, yes, we need the textbooks. That money they use to create those tests could go to these poor children in these places like Philadelphia and get them the books they need. Raise teachers' salaries, reduce class sizes so they can watch the children and see if they're failing in some aspect of their education. Richard Phelps, he says that children have to be tested so we know that they're learning. He's right, they absolutely do. But our children are not standard. They're all different. They don't need a standard test. They do need to make sure they're learning. The teachers need to be made accountable that they are teaching what they should. Each district has a curriculum for their teachers. That district needs to make a test, and that way they can tell if the children are learning and if the teacher is doing her job. I urge all of you to become more educated about the destructiveness of these tests on these children. Support your educators. Get parents involved. Let people know about these big companies that are making billions of dollars on the backs of our students and our teachers. Our children need to be educated, absolutely, but they don't need to be a statistic for a bureaucrat. They need to learn. Let teachers do their job and teach our children like they were trained to do. Thank you. Show my audience again.